Hello, my name is Isobel Bird and I will be teaching you today about how to fake it till you make it. So you're a beginner delegate and you show up to a conference and you see all these people in suits and they're talking and they're arguing and you can't understand a word they're saying. Policies and clashes and sanctions and I don't know, you're lost. You don't know where to start. But here's the thing. Every one of them, the people who win best delegates, the people you're scared of, every single one of them either is or had to fake it till they made it. I've faked it. Everyone has. Even the chairs, to some extent, will have to fake it because the only way you gain experience is by doing it. And if you're too scared to do it, then you're in a bit of a catch-22. So you have to fake it to start doing things, and that's how you gain experience to start being a good delegate and start getting awards. So you can't wait until you're sure of what you're doing, because you'll never be completely sure of what you're doing. So you've got to jump in there and start, no matter how scared you are. You've got to take the leap of faith and trust yourself to do the right thing, because, chances are most of the people in the room are going to be doing the same thing. So everyone I've talked to has told me the same thing. I had a mentor when I started MUN 4 years ago, and I admired him. He was amazing. He was the ultimate MUNer. I mean, he was a genius, really. And yet years later, he told me that at the time he had no clue what he was doing. He felt like an imposter. He felt like he wasn't supposed to be there. And imposter syndrome is real. I have it a lot myself. But when you fake it, you won't just make it. You'll start becoming who you're trying to be. So don't worry if you feel like you're not supposed to be there. If everyone else feels like they know what they're doing and you're the only one stuck there looking around, everyone feels like that. And it goes to show that you know more than you give yourself credit for. You can trust yourself to do well if you don't let yourself get intimidated enough to give up. So I'm going to talk about how you can fake it in lobbying and coalition management, and then about how you can fake it with speeches and questions. And the reason I'm going to be talking about lobbying and coalition management first is that included in that is body language and posture, and that matters all the time, from the second you get to the venue of the conference. And there are different aspects to faking it while lobbying. You can mimic the people you admire. You can dress the part, you should. You should adopt the right posture and body language. And all of this will help you fake confidence, which in turn will let you become more confident and show those around you that you are a delegate to look out for. So as soon as you get to the conference, you'll start meeting delegates from your committee. First impressions are a real thing. And if you want people to perceive you as a strong player, if you want to show your chairs that you're a strong delegate, you need to play the part. You might be a socially anxious person in real life, but remember that in the conference you are not you. You're a country. You're China or the United States or Germany. And Germany isn't shy, is it? Germany's the strongest country in Europe. So remember that you are not you, you're a country, so act like it. Well, technically you're a delegate of a country, but a delegate of a country is not shy. So remember that. Nothing from your real life applies in the conference in terms of social rules. You can go in with your best friends, you can fight with them as countries, and you can come out the other side stronger friends. So don't bring in your real life anxiety. Remember that in a conference you can do whatever you want. For example, in real life, people have told me that I probably lack charisma, or I won't be able to do public speaking. And I mean, they're right. In real life, I am terrible at things like that. But, the awards say differently, and that's because in a conference, I'm Mexico or I'm Switzerland, and that's a completely different state of mind. So if you're an anxious person in real life and you're finding it hard to switch, you're finding it hard to become a more confident person in a conference, what do? How do you start making connections? How do you start influencing decisions? Well, the first thing is posture. It's a really simple thing and it's really important. You adopt confident body language. So what does that mean? You sit up straight, you have your head high, you hold your arms out, you make big gestures with your hands when you're talking. You don't cross your arms like that, because people will see that and subconsciously they'll think, well, they're shy, they're not someone who's going to help me, I'm not going to talk to them, I'm not going to think very highly of them if they talk to me. But if you're loud with your actions, with your posture, with your body language, they're going to take note of that, and it does make a huge difference. And especially if you're a person who is short or you're quiet, studies have shown that, like, if you're standing there and you have more open gestures, it is an expression of power and dominance, and it's scientifically proven to yield results. It's going to work if you can't use things like your height or your voice. And there's also a thing where if you're talking to someone and if you are shy, the other person is going to pick up on that and they're going to become more loud and more boisterous. So we do the opposite of what the person who's talking to us is doing. So that if your body language indicates that you're in control and that you know what you're doing, then the person you're talking to is going to understand that. They're going to feel less in control, and you'll be able to see that in their body language. And it is true that if you act confident, you will become confident. So if you're not sure of what you're doing, but you force yourself to do certain things with your hands or with your voice, you will follow that. You will become more confident yourself. So a simple change in posture does give a huge difference. Now, what you can do, if it helps, you can imagine the other people as countries, not as people. Concentrate on which names you need to talk to, which countries you need to sign on your piece of paper that you have in your hand. If it's easier for you to form human friendships first, then do that. Get to know people. I mean, personally, I think of people as countries. I still don't know their names. So yeah, that's what I do. You do whatever works for you. Another thing you can do is mimicking people you admire or people who you want to follow. So you can look around, you can see what the power delegates are doing, and you can just try and mimic, for example, their tone of voice or their lobbying strategy. We learn by copying, and you can do that without fully understanding why you're doing it. You'll see for yourself when you do it. You'll see what other people are doing. You try and just do what they're doing without fully understanding, without knowing why. And then you'll see why, because you'll see the results. So if someone is making a group of the countries that are like them, you can make a group of countries that are like you. You can talk to them, and you'll see the results. Another aspect is dressing the part. It's more important to wear clothes that make you feel comfortable and confident than it is to stick to the dress code. I mean, of course, keep it formal, but if someone is pressuring you into wearing something that you're not confident in, that you're not comfortable in, you've lost your concentration for the day. So make sure you're wearing something that you like, that you know you feel good in, and that will give you a confidence boost by itself. So doing all of these things are going to let you fake confidence, but it doesn't stop there. If you're faking confidence, other people are going to catch on that you know what you're doing. And like I said earlier about posture, this means that other people are going to let you take control of the coalition or the resolution or the moderated caucus. And once you're there, you can use all of the other speakers in IOTalks to gain control of the whole committee. So that was all about coalition management, lobbying, and the small interactions that make up a conference. But a large part of your day is taken up by making and listening to speeches and asking and answering questions, or POIs, points of information, about the speeches. So there are 4 scenarios that I want to cover here. One is someone else is speaking and you are listening to them. A large part of the conference. You have the general speakers list, you have moderated caucuses. There's going to be a lot of time where someone else is talking and you're sitting there listening. The second is you are asking a question. So after someone else has spoken, they say, "Are you open to points of information?" They say yes. You raise your placard and you ask them for a question. The third is you are speaking, so giving a speech. Your opening speech, a speech in a moderated caucus, speeches throughout the day that I would encourage you to do as much as you can. The fourth scenario is someone is asking you a question. After your speech, someone raised their placard to ask you a POI. And maybe you're not prepared for that POI, but we'll cover that. So, if someone else is speaking and you're listening, remember that if you're faking it, you need every edge you can get. And during these long bits of people speaking, people tend to fall asleep. It's boring, it's long, and if they're not motivated enough to pay attention, they're going to fall asleep. So this is your chance to be active and show the chairs that you are putting in the effort. If you don't understand what someone is saying, try to listen for sentences or words that might indicate if they're for or against what you believe in. So throughout all of the speeches, you need to be writing down whatever you can grasp of people's speeches. And whatever you can understand from an entire speech, just write it down and have it in front of you for future reference. And this leads nicely into your asking a question. So you can use what you've understood from a speech and you find out what a person's position is and you use that to ask them a question. And I'm sure there'll be other lectures on other speakers on POIs and why you ask them, what you're trying to find out. But basically, you're trying to either get them to support you, you're asking them if they support you, or you're trying to expose a fault in their logic, something like that. Whenever there's an option for a POI, I suggest that you put your placard up. It's really important to show the chairs that you are active, you're listening, and you have stuff to say. Being active is one of the most important things, because if you don't know what you're doing, especially if you don't know what you're doing, if you're active as possible, then you will at some point get something right. And if all else fails, if you don't know what they said, look at who's talking. If you're the UK and Iran just spoke, you probably don't agree with them. So you can prepare questions before, like, do you agree with me? You can't say you and you can't say me, but you put in the countries. Do you agree with me that we should do this? Or why do you say that we should do that if it would harm this type of person? You can say, this person has suggested something. Do you agree with that even though something else is wrong with it? You have all the time in the world before to prepare and to write stuff down, so you can have a copy, you can have a cookie cutter question, regardless of if you understand the speech or not. So now, if you are speaking, first of all, like I said before, remember that before the conference, you have all the time in the world to prepare, to translate, to write down speeches, points, questions, all of that. You're in no rush, and if you panic in front of people, then you have time before the conference to write down and prepare everything that you need. You should prepare and understand your own arguments, your own points, your own demands, and the reasons at the very least, okay? But things change in the middle of a conference, and you might panic. Your name might be on the list. Your time might come to speak, and you have no idea what to say. So, at all times, you should write down what is happening. You should be aware of where the committee is at, why you're speaking, who you're speaking for or against, and just really understand where you're at in the committee. A good tip for how to speak if you're not prepared is, let's imagine, for example, that you're the United Kingdom, and you're arguing, I don't know, or let's say you're Norway and you're arguing for the environment, and your time comes to speak and you don't know what to say. So what you can do is imagine that the United States just said something bad about you. Just imagine. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. But imagine that they did. Your speech can then be an answer to people who are saying bad things about you. It helps provide the mental, it provides the right direction, and it makes it easier for you to improvise. And since you have the time before the conference to prepare, you can write down small snippets of arguments for or against a particular point. Keep them ready, print them out, have them available. So even if you have no clue what you're doing, you're still able to be active and to give relatively good speeches. Now the fourth scenario is someone is asking you a question and you're not prepared. You can, of course, try and give one of your friends a question to ask you, and you'll have the answer prepared, but that's not very effective. The chairs might notice. It's not the safest thing to do. So what you can do is, the worst case scenario is someone asks you a question, you don't know what to do, you say, I'll answer in the lobbying time. It's a way out, but everyone knows that you didn't understand the question. So there are stalling techniques. You can say to the chairs, could the delegate please rephrase? And so the chairs will say, could the delegate rephrase? And they do. It's like tying your shoelaces. It gives you a little bit of time to do what you need to do. You can also restate one of your arguments from before. You can give one of your points that you've heard someone else say. Or you can just say whatever you have in your head at the moment if you don't understand the question. If you do, take a deep breath, try and understand what they said, and then give them everything you've got. But remember what we said about the confidence. If you act confident, you will be confident. So concentrate on that, and it will work out. So there you go. If you don't know what you're doing, prepare beforehand. Keep your body looking like you're confident. Make sure you think that you're confident. Make sure that you believe that everything will work out, and it will. Because you're capable of more than what you think you are. Everyone's faking it. Don't worry, and good luck.